to The Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee, and today I'm excited to welcome my next guest, a musician, songwriter, mindfulness teacher, the lead singer, songwriter, and music director of Ari and the Buffalo Kings. Please welcome Ari Pluznik. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much, Rob.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you for making the time.
Of course. Thank you. It has been a long time coming. I'm really glad we're doing this. And I'm glad that you read The Music Director. That's a title I gave myself. So a big thank you to the band, who I really appreciate. And yeah, when I write like really formal emails to people, like trying to reach out, I'm like, yeah, I'm also a music director. Sometimes I throw in I'm the manager, you know?
For a second, I thought you were going to say I'm the man, and was like, you sure? Sure you want to go with that one?
Oh, no. I would never.
But yeah, it's one of the things that I think titles are important, but it's like this bit that me and my partner, she throws out there, is from Atlanta. It's like, man, everything made up. Stay woke. It's that,
exactly,
you know? And,
exactly. Well, that goes deeper than you think, my friend. Like, it goes way deeper.
And it's one of those things where, you know, like I kind of fell in, and this is just more prescript, as it were. It's not that I fell out of love with this sort of medium, this creative like interest that I have in podcasting, but I think podcasting as a name or as a title, podcaster, has become deprecated because it's a way of, nah, this isn't anything worthwhile. And it's like, I'm a journalist then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. You could say podcast journalist. You just say journalist. It's all a game, you know?
Someone called me a documentary podcaster.
I love that. You see, that feels very high, high culture, you know?
It feels like, because I'm always wearing Carhartt, it feels like I have a tie with the Carhartt button up on. Yeah, that's what it feels like. Yeah. It's like, I'm both. Get you a guy that can do both. So
I love that.
You know, as we start off, I want to ask you to share a little bit of your background. You know, where'd you grow up, and what were some of your early creative interests?
Yeah, so I grew up not far from Baltimore. I was born in Baltimore, but I grew up in Columbia, Maryland, for a good part of my childhood. Probably up until I was about in 5th grade, which I can't even remember how old that is anymore. But I remember moving to St. John's Lane Elementary School in Ellicott City, so still in the suburbs. But fun fact, I went to the high school that Snail Mail went to. And my brother, he won't mind saying this, he almost went to prom with her, but she had a gig. So... That's my big claim to Baltimore fame. But yeah, no, I grew up, in the suburbs, and it was, I would say you get older, you learn about your childhood, you realize what is what, and that is what it is, and we're all working with it. But I think in general, it was a really nice upbringing. And, I have an uncle who's a musician. So I had always kind of grown up listening to him play, and it was like some of the best times to like go see him perform. And it was like kind of this magic that happened there. And, also like it's something I've battled my whole life with, is this feeling of, oh, well, I could never do that. I mean, like as a kid, of course, you're like, but I think that I carried that with me for quite some time. But I was always around music, and my mom was one of these people that whenever you're in the car, there's music playing. And it's funny, I know like every word to Hairspray the musical, like every single word. Listen, if you play the movie, like I won't get it. Like some of it changed, and I can't stand it. I love the movie. But yeah, the musical, and she was a very classic, like Billy Joel, Elton John kind of, Jewish American woman. Yeah. But she also, a little off-brand, I guess, was really into country music. So there was a lot of country music growing up. And when I hit that 13-year-old phase, I was like, no, I like rock and roll. Country music sucks. But, it's my mom. It's her car. She gets to listen to what she wants to every now and then, at least. So I grew up with a lot of country music, which is funny because I think now more than anything, I like to call myself a folk artist. And I feel myself like getting in touch. There's that Elton John, there's that Billy Joel, like classic songwriters. But then there is that kind of countryish twinge, and there's a proclivity for telling story that I really like, even if I do it in kind of like a, you know, kind of more of a kind of like you get like your Beatles or your Bob Dylan or, you know, pretty much anybody today that writes songs where they're telling a story, but it's not so laid out, you know? So I like to kind of like, I like to bounce between those kind of extremes.
Yeah.
But as far as like getting in touch with my creativity, I was always playing music in high school. I can say that I had a really amazing high school education in music. And then once I got to college, I was playing jazz bass, actually. I learned the upright bass in college. I had just played electric bass since then. And then through college, actually some exposures to some really great Latin American songwriters really got me to pick up the guitar and want to play these songs, and also really wanting to play like the Billy Joel classics, the Elton John classics, the Beatles classics that I grew up with and loved, and then obviously exploring other things. But I would say that I wasn't initially a guitarist at all. I was playing bass. And then, you know, through a lot of hard work, I ended up learning guitar and like getting it to a place where I felt comfortable performing. And same with singing. And I just have to like give a big shout out to my teachers, who really like got me to the point where I was able to like well into my mid 20s, late 20s, to the point where I felt very comfortable performing. And like, you know, as an artist, you're always trying to improve, but there does get to a point where you're like, okay, yeah, I can kind of like relax around this because I am good enough, you know, which totally connects to the mindfulness thing, but we can get into that later. But that's kind of how it started. And then it just got more and more like, you know, I felt like I was creating things that I really wanted to share, that I felt was worth sharing. Mm-hmm. And then it's this strange balance of like egotism of like, yes, I want you to hear this, like, and then this kind of like maybe more sacred process of like flow of creative energy, you know, and connection.
Oh, thank you. So it brings me to the question about you know, where we're at now, right? So could you tell us about Ari and the Buffalo Kings? How what was the story? What was the introduction story? Like, how did the band get started? And pretty much what's the music about, man?
Yeah, thanks. Ari and the Buffalo Kings got started. I mean, it got started kind of in earnest in 2019. I was working at Creative Alliance at the time, and they had a really great Viva Brazil party that I'm pretty sure is still recurring. I think it happens every winter around Carnival. And the music director at the time, Josh Kahn, introduced me to Danielle Williams, who's one of my big collaborators in the band. She's a multi-instrumentalist, has traveled all over the world, has a really deep interest in different folk musics around the world. And we met and like kind of hit it off. And then I had played with my really good friend Gino Hanna from college back at St. Mary's College of Maryland. And we had played with his dad, actually, Jim Hanna, who, by the way, if you don't know, Jim Hanna is one of the like most versatile and, in my opinion, one of the best percussionists in the Baltimore area. He plays with everybody, you know. He just like one of these people that's like wherever you go, you probably might see him, and he's just so talented. So that was the original band. It was literally father and son, and then me and Danielle, and we all kind of got together because we do have this interest in like world folk traditions and world folk music, and you know, kind of like playing with music genre boundaries in a way that's still kind of in this like acoustic theme and this like very like, you know, natural instruments theme, you know. So that's how it started in 2019, and like we were all growing, maybe with the exception of Jim, who like obviously is growing but is very like established, so we were just very lucky to play with him. We were all growing as musicians and growing as a band, and eventually the band itself grew. and we added many more collaborators, including Gabe Bustos on bass, who also has an amazing like country bluegrass project called oh, I hope I get this right, Gabe. I'm sorry if I don't. It's called Gin con Leche. It's a great name, Gin con Leche. And then we added as well a great collaborator, Samantha Flores, on cello, which brings this really warm kind of classical orchestral vibe to our music. And I'll just throw into that Samantha and Danielle have a great project themselves called the Bayberries, where they kind of do a similar thing where they're using kind of more classical instruments, but in folk modalities, which just leads to a very cool result. And they've been like creating and performing a lot of really cool new music. So we're all really interested in this idea of like, how do you take instruments that maybe you don't always hear and put them, at least my approach is put them in a place where you like wouldn't expect it, but somehow it really works because it's all in the service of like, straight from the heart songwriting. Yeah. And that's what I'm always trying to go for. So, we had kind of been rolling with that and just seeing what we could do. And then we got, in my opinion, super lucky when I was renting out a room in my house in Abel. And this guy shows up. His name is Snehesh Nag. He's from Kolkata. And he's just looking for a room to stay. And he like mentions, oh yeah, I play sitar. And I was like, that's cool, man. I've been listening to I was listening to like just some like sitar thing at the time. It was actually a sitar, like it was a Jewish Indian mix of klezmer music and Hindustani classical music, which was really cool. I should listen to it again. I haven't listened to it in a long time. But anyways, he moves in, right? Yeah. Like surreptitiously. And then I hear him playing and he's amazing. He's like amazing. And he actually comes from a long line of sitar players in Kolkata. And, I was like, well, just because you're good at sitar doesn't mean that you can play in a band. So I was like, well, let's jam. So we jammed. I played I played him some of my songs. He did an amazing job. 3 days later, he was on stage with us at Andi Music. And then that's kind of like the core band now, which is like 7 people, which is like very cool for me. I've always loved like big bands, lots of instruments. From a music business point of view, it's a difficult like thing to do, but we're in Baltimore. People have a really big hearts and like are really interested. I do think in Baltimore, people are genuinely interested in like real creativity and doing like cool things. So I've been feeling very fortunate. And, you asked about like what the music is about. For me, it's all about being genuine, and it's about, connecting to your heart and mind. I call our music like songs from the heart mind. And it's all about, like realize, like looking at the joys in life and looking at the difficulties in life and being able to hold both simultaneously. And it's very deeply connected to kind of my mindfulness journey and my journey as a teacher. And it's this thing that I'm always trying to basically, when I'm teaching meditation and teaching mindfulness, it's very direct. I can be very direct. And in art and in music, especially, it can be just as direct, but it's done in a different way. And it's done a little more metaphorically. It's done with sound. It's done with emotional texture, So, I'm still working on that every day. I'm like trying to write a new song, So that's kind of where the journey is. And that's what I'm always trying to do. And, the hope is that it helps people out. We had somebody at a concert who's a good friend of ours, who's also like a career musician. And he was like, Ari, that was like a therapy session. I started feeling things and I started getting a little like, ooh, I don't know. But then I was like, oh, you know what? Ari and the band are here. It's okay. It's okay. I can feel these things. And that was just great for me to hear. I was like, okay, I think it's working. I don't know.
That's wonderful. And So, I'm definitely, I want to go back into, your sort of roots in mindfulness and sort of that journey. I want to ask you these two questions.
Yeah.
One is related to the sitar, so I definitely have to ask you this. So, I listened to your performance, listened to this video of living in 3D.
Yeah.
It was this
Living
clip
in
that was
5D.
5D. Sorry, living in 5D.
Yeah.
5D.
Yes, sir.
It's listed as my third question.
Mm.
And so living in 5D, and it was at and Die Music. And I love the addition of like the sitar solo. So like, could you share like, some of those like other maybe non-musical, but really sort of what that vibe might be that you're trying to create with, whether it's the stage performance. And I think you were touching on it there a bit, as to it almost feels like, hey, we're not necessarily going to church, but we're going to sort of this
Yeah.
collective. We're all in this being. We're all, it's like, it's for your heart, mind, that thing. So share
Yeah.
a bit more about that.
Of course, I would love to. I'll share the joke that people are always like, Ari, don't start a cult, man. And I'm like, I want to state for the record, I have no intentions of ever starting, forming, or being a part of a cult. Which is also a joke, my friends. I don't think I'm capable of starting a cult. Thank you.
That's really funny.
Yeah, no, I think that, it's kind of this amazing thing that happens. And I feel it all the time when I'm teaching that, the minute that you get real, people will get real with you, and especially if you're kind of in the position of a performer or a teacher, in a position where people are paying attention to you, if you are able to kind of connect with, what is genuinely happening to you right now and in your life and what is true to you, it kind of puts people in that place. And I think that that's this sacred space, religious space, spiritual space that anybody feels whenever they do anything of that nature, It's funny, I have a friend in essentially a white boy reggae band, but they're doing very well for themselves. And it's not it's not necessarily, and I love them, they're called Cashed Out. They're doing very well. And it's not the place that I would think like, would be a place for this. But he was like, when people come to our concerts, it's like going to church for them.
Yeah.
There's something about artists that we can connect to very deeply. So that's something that I am definitely trying to put in. And it's this thing of like, this connection between, when you're at a concert and you're being washed over by music, especially that's kind of designed for it, there's this settling in and there's this like being with that's just happening because you're all there. You're kind of in like a flow state, just listening. Yeah. And then to kind of bring attention to that and just ask people, actually at the last big thing we did, which was a house concert in Baltimore, we actually meditated like in the middle of the set, which was awesome. And then like I would just like ask people like, listen, like just keep listening to your body. Like, how does this stuff come up for you? Like, how does this song, how's it hitting within your body? And it's all about connecting with our emotions on a physical level, like actually be able to feel like, where do I feel tenderness? Yeah. Like we feel so much tenderness sometimes with music, or where do I feel excitement, So, I mean, especially with the sitar, right? Like that, everything that he does in that video, which is on YouTube for everybody at home, Snehesh is just drawing from Hindustani classical music. I had the incredible chance to stay with him and his family in Kolkata in, when was it? January. So not that long ago. And it was like a college education. Almost every night we were at an Indian classical concert. And that's what this music is for. It's for, Snehesh would say, it's not really for the audience. It's for the musician himself or herself to grow spiritually and to connect spiritually. And through that, we're all able to, So not to mention, it's just so cool that like, yeah, we already had this idea of, well, like what would like an international folk music sound like, or like a multicultural folk music sound like, I love like all the projects. Like I know it's like it's probably not cool anymore. I don't know. I love Graceland. Like I've always loved Graceland. Like I was the kid like listening to Graceland being like, this is the answer to everything. And then I learned about the controversy, blah, blah, blah. But I just like that's what and a lot of Paul Simon's later work where he just like, yeah, he'd have tabla players and he'd have, you know, African guitarists. One of his basses is I think South African maybe or Tanzanian, but like just this idea of like people from across the world coming together musically, and it really creates something really special,
Yeah.
you know? So
sort of being able to bring together those, I believe at times maybe our perspectives are shaped by some of the experiences that we have, and that could be maybe one's perspective, like maybe the types of questions I might ask, or maybe the type of influences that show up in your music, or maybe how you go about your music. So I think being able to bring in a large swath of people that have different, you just don't want like 5 white boys just going off. It's like that was fine in the 50s, I'm sure.
yeah.
But you know, having just different folks, but also having that sort of, it's not we're vulturing. It's like, no, we're doing an exchange here. This is us doing a collaborative thing, because
exactly
when a lot of times, because I listen to certain things, I'm like, you really did switch it up. Because, you know, I remember, I think it's a Paul Simon song. I'm thinking of it. I'm blanking on it right now. But I remember there was this point in the 80s, right, where it's just like everyone had like the sort of world beat thing that was going.
Exactly.
All right. What are we doing here, guys?
Yeah.
Or
exactly.
Even in the 90s, it's like, let's take from the queer community and, you know, take house music and all of that. Now I have a house music song. It's like, are you into that? Which is great if you are. Or is it, this is the lane now?
It's like the trend, right?
Yeah.
Are you just feeding into whatever the trend, you know?
But, you know, this sort of experience, that's the thing that I'm kind of getting in, you know, because I felt something. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to gas you up. I felt something. I was watching some of the different videos. I was like, okay, I get it. You know, that was that. And this is going to sound ridiculous, but I'll say it reminded me of this period, probably like between 2009 and 2011, where I was listening to a lot of Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like that. And it took me back. And it's like, you guys are not playing the same stuff, but it was like, this is an experience. And it reminded me of that time. And it took me back to that time while listening to your stuff.
It's tenderness. That's what it is. Just being, it doesn't matter what it sounds like. I listen to Kendrick Lamar's album and it's so tender, like the new one, you know? It's like just that, like, it's realness. And I'm not saying like I'm the most whatever, but like, if I go up on stage or I'm writing a song and I'm just trying to be like just tender with myself, like what is going on with me? Even if it's not a tender song, like let me do this straight from the heart. It's gonna have that effect, you know?
There is, and I think that's what people look for. They look for authenticity. It almost feels like a buzzword because it's overused, but they're looking for what feels real. And one of the things that I take from listening to some of your stuff, like I said, you know, and I joke about it on occasion when I'm doing research for like a guest. I feel like, you know, you watch one of those movies and you see like the threads that's going like, now this is connected here and that's connected here. I feel like I was doing that like through a YouTube search, right? And I can say like your music is like introspective, like you in the band, your music is introspective and it's funny at times. I'm like, okay, I wasn't expecting to hear that. That's really funny. And it's definitely evident in Year or Two, which I was just like, okay. I was like, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
So, you know, really talk to me a little bit about like sort of that courage that's in songwriting to at times like share things that may be, you know, more personal, may dig up some old feelings and things of the sort, because I think, you know, creative folks, you know, as you and I are, you more than me, I'm just a guy with a microphone, but we really, when it's something that we're doing, we really get connected to it. And, you know, we say we're doing it for ourselves, and it is a big piece of it. We're doing it for ourselves, but you want to see how it's received too.
Yeah.
Sharing a thing, you're like, all right, what do people think? This isn't like my real life right here, especially when you're being real and vulnerable.
It's scary. Oh man, that's the scariest thing. Um, yeah, I think, I sometimes think about it like there's I don't have a choice,
Mm,
like a lot of the first album that's out now, which is just our self-titled Ari and the Buffalo Kings. It was really me metabolizing just what had happened to me within the period of, let's say, 2016 to 2019, where I was in Peace Corps. I was living in Africa, in Mozambique. Uh, it was an amazing experience, I'll say, and it was an extremely difficult experience and like quite isolating. And then I came home and had a really bad breakup, and
mm,
so I was like kind of like totally like readjusting to home. My heart's broken. I didn't know what to do. And actually, like the day after the breakup, I was house sitting alone, like at my neighbor's house, and they had a piano. And I just started writing the song Mr. Atom Bomb, which is one of my favorites off that track. Um, and it was a way for me to just metabolize what was going on, just to let it like kind of run through me, and to almost honor the feelings, and be like, okay, this is what's here. Let me, like, it just helps me to feel better, and especially as a musician, but like, as a kid with the guitar, I'd like sing like, any of like one of those Billy Joel songs, and just like really get into it, because it was a way for me to like express, to kind of get the emotions moving so that they're not all just pent up inside me, you know. Um and that was actually before I really started practicing mindfulness. So that was a way for me to do it. And then I got in touch with actual practices that get a lot more subtle, get a lot more deeper, and then you're really able to see what's going on, and you're able to, metabolize it through that. That's something that the great Zen teacher Thich Nhat Hanh always talks about, is like we're transforming suffering.
mm.
When you look at your suffering and you're able to accept it and be with it and watch it as it changes, you're actually transforming it into like compassion, into joy, into whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So I think with my music, I'm always trying to do that. And I'm trying to like, be a poet too at the same time, and be like, this is our human experience. What can I say about it that makes you feel safe, makes you feel at home, but also makes you feel like whatever you're feeling is valid.
Yeah.
Whatever you're feeling, like if it's here, it's okay, And how can I do that through music? And like I'm always about like music, like having that kind of vibe. Like even if it's upbeat, even if it's this, like you're not going to listen to my music in a club. It's not meant for that, And like that's okay. My
Try
music,
meditation.
yeah. Like I mean, hey, if a DJ wants to get together with me, I'm down, dude. Like the music's not about the club, right? It
Yeah.
could be, but it isn't necessarily. If you want to bump it, like I'm not going to stop you.
So the music is so it's not for the club, as it were, but you're not against that.
I'm absolutely not against that. And honestly, if anybody wants to try it out, be my guest. I would love that. And I'd be down for any further collaborations. I'm an open kind of guy. Let's see what happens. But I would say it's really music for long car rides. It's music for, sitting in nature and just kind of listening to the music and listening to yourself,
Mm,
and, seeing what kind of happens, you know.
yeah.
I think some of the best things music can do for us is just kind of like teach us what's going on in ourselves, and teach like kind of point a finger to what's going on in our lives too. So that's really what I'm trying to do, kind of, as a musician, as a poet, as a mindfulness teacher. I'm just trying to point to what is true in my life,
Yeah.
And oftentimes what is true in my life is true in a lot of our lives.
So in that, and thank you for that. So in that, I want to kind of close out on these last two questions that are mindfulness related. And one is sort of how did you get into sort of mindfulness, being aware of it, and like being a practicer, and then later a teacher in that arena?
Yeah, of course. So, kind of around that time when I was having a, difficult time around like, 2019-ish, I was writing all this music. I was, I'm like, I'll be a songwriter, I'll do this. Yeah, for sure. Um, and it was a huge help. And I'm so happy I did it. And music will always be kind of what I turn to connect to myself and to connect with others. And I just have like such a love for it. And it also wasn't cutting it. Like I was still like racked with anxiety, just experiencing some very difficult emotions that, we've all experienced at one point or another. Um, and kind of going through that and kind of being like, okay, enough already, please. um, I had actually been exposed to meditation in college, because I've always been interested in it. I said recently in another interview that, which is funny because one of the clinics I work with put this in their advertisement for a class I'm doing. Um, I grew up watching Star Wars and I loved Star Wars. And if I could have chosen, and would still be my choice, like if I could have chosen like the profession that would have been the best for me, it would have been like Jedi Master, of course, And like there is something about like like just like these people, that would somehow they're so centered and they're, but they're still doing cool stuff, of course. Um, so that, it did kind of and George Lucas pulled from Zen and
Yeah.
pulled from a lot of these Asian sources. So I'd always had that seed in my mind, like, oh, I would love to like do that, but I don't think that's for me. I'm not like, I don't know. I don't even like, I didn't know anything about it. And, through this college course called Meditation in the Mind, which was half of a philosophy course, half of a neuroscience course, we kind of learned about different modalities within meditation and kind of learned some of the neuroscience backing. I was actually studying biology in school, so this wasn't like totally out of my purview.
Right.
Which is surprising, of course. Um, but that really that's actually where I learned how to meditate. Our professor actually like taught us like kind of a very basic Vipassana practice, um, which is just means insight practice. It's just paying attention to what's within your body and within your surroundings in the
Yeah.
present moment. So I had been doing that since college, but I had struggled with kind of maintaining a practice. I had struggled with like going deeper. And finally, in the Baltimore area, actually, I started going to Insight Meditation Community of Washington classes who have a Baltimore chapter. And then I got put in touch with my teacher, Stan Eisenstein, who actually teaches in my hometown. So all through the pandemic, I was attending his classes once a week, meditating a lot. I attended some retreats. And being a practitioner in that way really just helped me to understand what was going on inside me, understand my anxiety, how it arises, what it does to my body and my mind. Learning how to befriend it is a big thing, like learning how to befriend the anxiety, like, oh, it's here. I don't have to push it away. I don't have to wish things were different. I can actually just be with it and kind of notice, well, what does this do to my system? Like, oh, I feel really tense in my chest, or I feel like, we're actually instructed to like locate where is it, and so I'd feel it around my solar plexus. It might like radiate out, you know, and it's felt as like this tension or throbbing, and like, there might be color associated. There might be um, vibrations or numbness and all this kind of stuff. So as a practitioner and going on retreats and stuff, it was very, very helpful for me. Just to like get to understand how it is our psychology works and how it is our lives work. I essentially saw the opportunity to become a teacher through the Mindfulness Meditation Teacher program, which is offered by Jack Kornfield and Tara Brach. And Jack Kornfield is a Buddhist meditation teacher I had started following through just kind of my explorations, and he's one of the bigger names here in the West and in America, at least. So I had listened to one of his audiobooks. I had really like read some of his other stuff, really appreciated his voice as a teacher. So I saw this program, and I actually got to go to my local teacher, Stan Eisenstein, and just say, hey, like, do you think that this is a good idea? At that time, I didn't really want to be a teacher. I was like, I'm in no position to do that. But what I wanted to do was really deepen my practice and have like a reason to do that.
Yeah.
So he had encouraged me, and he had really said, you haven't really been practicing all that long at the time. But we have a need for younger teachers, for people to share this kind of stuff with kind of younger people. Most of these classes I was with, it was like 60-year-old. Typically in Baltimore, way different, but at least in the Ellicott City chapter, like 6-year-old white people, mostly white women,
Right.
So it's interesting to do that and be kind of a slightly different demographic, and kind of get into it, because it really is practices for everyone. And that whole like DEIA component is something that we talked about a ton in the program, is how do we, how can we share this in a way that feels good? How can we, make these practices available to everyone? Because honestly, retreats can be quite expensive depending on who you're going with, and there's a whole world associated with that. So anyways, with the encouragement of my teacher, I joined the 2-year program, and I just finished last January, which is super exciting. Yeah. And I'm calling myself a certified mindfulness teacher, although the certificate is still in the mail, but I think that it's okay.
Well, congratulations.
And thank you. Yeah, it was an amazing experience. We did practicums, we had groups, we learned how to teach, we would teach to each other. I taught a few courses through it. And, by the time this podcast comes out, I'm hoping to be having a regular weekly class, like just a drop-in, free of charge, donation-based, like come check it out class where we'll meditate and we'll talk and we'll share our experiences. And it's just like a really great way to connect with like who we are, who we truly are, and connect with, just what's going on. We live such distracted lives sometimes, a lot of times. And it's just good to take some moments just to settle in and to reconnect with ourselves. And there's that kind of amazing thing that happens also at concerts where we end up connecting with others through that,
The rapid fire portion of The Truth in This Art is brought to you by, the Truth in This Art. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Truth in This Art, and on all of the podcast platforms, namely Spotify and Apple, Amazon Podcasts, Stitcher, all of that good stuff. Leave a review when you can, 5 stars or whatever you think we deserve, to help get, more awareness on this great podcast and more awareness on these stories. This is how this sort of platform grows. So with your support, we can continue to do that, to get these great stories out there. Now back to the podcast. I actually kind of got that last question I was looking to get an answer on, so I think we got it. And so with that, I want to move into, in the final moments, I want to move into the rapid fire portion of the pod, because I got some questions. I got some questions for you.
Okay.
As an overthinker myself, I always like to give someone the same sort of advice I would like to get. Don't overthink them. So here's the first one.
Okay.
If you had to change your name, your first name specifically, what would you change it to?
What would I change it to? God, I'm gonna be bad at this. Ooh.
I know some people that switch their middle name.
Yeah, well, I was about to say my name is Ari Daniel Pluznik. My mom gave me the middle name Daniel just in case people made fun of my name Ari, So yeah, maybe Daniel. I also Ira, because it's just Ari backwards. So maybe I'd do Ira. That's kind of cool.
You could do air too, like this,
air. Yeah, like Airbender.
Hey man, the music is like air, man. It's just all encompassing, bro.
It's just air, dude.
What is since people are like, you touched on it a little bit earlier, like we're doing a lot of different things, and kind of, sometimes keeping someone's attention can be, a challenge or what have you. And we're just so caught up because I think people are very busy. So in that sort of like estimation, what is your sort of go-to lazy dinner? You don't have enough hours in the day. You're like, I need to eat something. It's got to be good, but it's got to be quick. What is it?
Yep. Well, you're in luck because I just did that. Really, it's just, it's like an omelet, like a really quick omelet, which just means that I scramble the eggs and then I pour it in together. Like I don't do the thing where I drop it in the pan and scramble it there.
Yeah.
Just that. And like, my dad's from Tel Aviv. So we do it's a very common salad, which is just cucumber, tomato, lemon, olive oil, boom. So you put that together. If you have some pickles, you eat some pickles, you eat some bread. It's super quick, super easy. And, filling, which is great.
I like it.
I actually love to cook, so I'm really glad you asked me that. Ask me any more cooking questions.
So this is the last one I got for you. You mentioned Elton John a few times earlier, and this was actually a question that I was asked recently. Okay. So I'm going to pass it over to you. What is your favorite Elton John song?
Oh, wow. That's a hard one.
I know.
Oh man.
Mine was Still Standing, by the way.
Oh, that's a great one. I'm still standing. Oh, that's such a good one.
And Goodbye Yellow Brick Road as well. That's another good one.
Yeah. So it's, you know what? You know which one I really like, which is surprising to me because I love all of those. And I love that album, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. It's one of my favorite albums. But it's Don't Let the Sun Come Down on Me. That song, any chance I get at karaoke, I'm singing that song. Which is kind of not fair because I'm what you might call a professional singer at this point. But it's just oh man, it's just and in a karaoke bar, I can sing that song like I'd never be able to perform it unless I had the full band. I didn't actually have to play anything. I can just that song is just go listen to it if you're you could pause the podcast and go listen. It's just it's got something that they say in flamenco music. It's got the duende. It's this passion, but it kind of hurts. It's this raw, oh, don't let the sun go down on me. Don't let the sun. Although I search myself, it's always something else I see. Oh, it's just holy shit, dude. Yeah, that's the one.
That's a good one. I'm going to check it out. I've never checked that one out. So something
dude.
To do.
Oh, you're in for a treat.
I'm looking forward to it.
Light a candle.
So in the final moments here, I want to thank you for being on this podcast. It's been truly a pleasure. And two, I want to invite and encourage you to share, anything you have in the final moments, social media, website. The floor is yours.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, Rob. It's been a real pleasure. Please, if you're listening and you want to just keep in touch, you can find me on Instagram at ARI_Buffalo Kings. You can also visit our website, which is ariandthebuffalokings.com. And if you visit our website, we actually have a page where you can sign up for our email list. And it's become kind of my music and mindfulness email list. So I share any upcoming concerts. We do have a second album that will be coming out, hopefully at the end of the summer, if not early fall, which I really encourage you to check out and to be in touch with because we'll be doing a lot of cool things around that. And just stay in touch because I will be offering, as I mentioned, weekly drop-in meditation classes. I'll be doing courses and workshops. I'm hoping to get into some one-on-one coaching. So do keep in touch. And we have a lot of great things coming up. So we'd love you to be a part of it.
And there you have it, folks. I want to again thank Ari Pluznik from Ari and the Buffalo Kings for coming onto the podcast and spending some time with me. And I'm Rob Lee, saying that there's art and culture in and around your neck of the woods. You've just got to look for it.